Welcome back for episode 3 of my show reviews. This is going to be the most exciting review I get to do. This is the Run for the Million. This is the one we've been waiting for, and I waited till after the embargo, obviously, to talk about it. By now, everybody's seen the results on Facebook and on the internet. I'm going to jump right into it and say that this is the best single class of reining I've ever seen in my life. 16 horses, all 16 of them were great. It was phenomenal. My favorite quote from anybody afterwards is a trainer from Florida, Bart Corrington. He said on Facebook that you know it's wicked reining when you walk in with a 76 horse and know it's not enough. It was incredible to see, and at least six, maybe 7 people had the best run of their life, and only one of them won it. It's pretty incredible to see this event and what it is. And so before I get into anything, we got some numbers. I'm going to read off my computer a little bit, so don't be alarmed if I'm talking to somebody else. But on numbers, here's the things. 16 runs, median score. For those of you who know math, know how impressive this will be. The median score of 16 horses was 227 1/2. And the average score was 228 1/4. That's an incredible number with any amount of horses, and obviously the more you get, the lower that'll get. But even with 16, even with a selected 16, that is an incredible feat. I would guarantee you that's the highest ever in a single event. So across 5 judges, 16 horses, that's 640 maneuvers evaluated. 60 of them, 60, were plus 1.5. That is 9.375% of all maneuvers evaluated were given what is considered excellent by the NRHA judges that were in attendance. Last year's fraternity had 1 plus 1.5 maneuver out of 32 runs. Mind you, 3-year-olds versus older horses, I get it. But that is an incredible feat, and that proves how on target everybody was when they came in. 2 horses did something I've never seen before, which is they plus 1.5 a single maneuver to all 5 judges. Usually you'll see 3 or 4 of them agree. To get all 5 judges, that means it's one of the best maneuvers you'll ever see of that maneuver. Ironically, both on the left hand set of circles. Trash Talkin Spook with Andrea, Miss Dreamy with Arno Honstetter. It was incredible. Let's start with 16th place, and Matt Palmer, Frozen Shining Gun, marked a 220. Yes, I just said 16th place with a 220. They both ran in and wanted to get a big stop, but the unfamiliarity or the lack of familiarity with this team showed just a little bit, as there was just a slight miscommunication. So the smoothness wasn't quite what you want. Fast, big step in first turn, maybe not as smooth as it needed to be. Big 1-point overturn penalty. Second turn's better. Matt safeties up a little bit at the end just to make sure he doesn't overturn. And Matt's kind of dug himself a hole right off the bat. He didn't start as good as he wanted to. Now, he shows his ability as a showman. Matt shines circling horses. He always has, ever since I've known him. That being said, this thing ran circles on a rail. Lucas, I can't pronounce his last name. He trained this horse so well in the circles. Matt showed him so well in the circles. He runs on a rail. Great slowdown. Great lead change. I mean, it's just where that pair shined that night, and it looked really good, especially the left set of circles, where he had everything from a 1.5 to a 1/2 on his circles, but most of them were 1s and above, plus 1s and above. His first stop, kind of the same as running, they just didn't quite connect, and when they didn't connect, it's front end locked just slightly. Great rollback. Left lead stop, so the stop is leading up to the second one around the side. Best one of the bunch, solid +1. Looked really, really good. Last stop is bigger than the first 2. Still just that slight choppiness, so the one on the left lead was probably his best. It's a great run and maneuver quality, but there's just some smoothness that needed to be there for that to finish up. unfortunately, but man, that's a cool horse that a lot of people haven't got to see until he came over here to the States. And I'll tell you what, that's a cool pair, and if Matt gets qualified, that's not a bad one to show again, especially with a little more time and a little more getting to know him. 15th place, Shawn Flarida. Spooks got a spark, marked a 222 after the only review of the show. Shawn had the worst first maneuver, the worst maneuver overall in this right off the bat, and it kind of stinks because it sunk what could have been a great run. Yellowstone had trouble finding the ground to start with, and then tried to roll back left twice. It's a -1 maneuver all day long in judges' school. Might have been a -1.5 to somebody. Now, that being said, Shawn showed the consummate professional that he is by resettling and turning +1 both ways. Stepped off into his circles, and for this event went a little easy, but would have still been great circles anywhere else. I mean, it ran circles. It was good. It just wasn't as dynamic because he knew he wasn't going to catch him, so he saved his horse a little bit. Went a little more in the second set. Yellowstone looked a little more like he usually does. And then the first stop, he had trouble getting in the ground. Shawn kind of handles him, but makes it work, and that's what you do. The second stop was his best one so far, but it's not what that team's capable of. It was good, but it's not that same capability of what they're normally used to. And in the last stop, Shawn protects and makes sure he stays on the ground. Still does really well. Now, I said he was a little soft in his circles. Maybe it was only the right circles because his best maneuver was actually his left circles, according to the scores. He had 4 1s and 1 1.5. One judge plus 1.5 to it. It's not the way you want to see that team match up, but that's horse showing. And if somebody had to make a mistake, you wouldn't have bet on Shawn. But proof, it happens to even the best. And Shawn was one of my favorites, and I was hoping that he would pull it together, and it didn't come together tonight. But great horse, gonna probably be a great sire. Everybody should be proud of that horse, no matter what. I mean, he did it last year. The year before, he was close, and this year just was bad luck. So hopefully, if he comes back, the luck turns a little better for them. In 14th place, we have Billy Williams, who came out draw 1 on Gunnin for Chicks, marked a 222.5. Billy was fortunate to even be at the event due to Sierra's withdrawal. Didn't look like it. Didn't look like the stage was too big for him. He ran that thing in hard. It stopped. It had to slightly rebalance. Okay. Still really good maneuver. So gets backed up, and when he goes to turn, Billy turns that thing monstrously both ways. Now, the style is a little more from a few years ago. These judges didn't let it get to him. They marked it accordingly. It turned quick-footed, really, really cool. Probably that horse's best maneuvers were his right spins. In fact, judging-wise, they were. It was 4 1s and a 1.5. Or sorry, 4 1s and a half, and a plus half. But it's what that horse does best, is turn. Now, when he circles, smooth, stylish, buttery lead change, buttery slowdown. He might have been early on his second lead change. And when he goes around the end on his last 3 stops, they're all big and dynamic. There's just a little bit of smoothness that's not quite there with some of the horses you see at the end of this event or later on in this event. Big rollbacks both ways, and his second stop is just a little tight in the front end. That's where the 222.5 comes from. It's not a score I would disagree with. I've seen a run like that mark higher at smaller events. I think there was something in the air that made them mark this way, and I'll tell you what, I was not that far off with them. I was a little higher to Billy, but it's still an excellent run, and it got the crowd electric when he came in. He was the first one out. Wasn't supposed to be there until a couple months ago. Made the run on the other old timer horse that's been pulled out of retirement. Give Billy all the credit in the world for the job he did show on this horse. It was incredible. Great job from him. Now we have the tie for 12th and 13th. I'm going to start with Craig Schmersal and What a Wave, 225.5. The oldest horse in the bunch, it looks like one of Craig's runs. It is plus everywhere, really good maneuvers. Hits his first stop just like one of Craig's does. It's big, it's round, it's framed up. I mean, it's the problem that he's running into here is at any event, that's a great stop. At this event, it's the average stop. What a Wave has proven over the years that he's a great horse. Did it again tonight, or this night. It's just one of those things, the dynamics have changed so much in the years since that horse was actively being shown full time and running for his world titles, and when he won and when he was reserved at the NRBC, and when he won the gold medal at the WEG. It's still an impressive, incredible run. I think What a Wave might be my favorite son of Tidal Wave Jack ever. He misplaces a step in his first set of turns, which keep it from being the one and a half that it needed to be, and it made it about a half. Second turn was cleaner and better. Small, close to overturn. I think he saved it, but I'm not 100% sure. Circles like one of Craig's. It's there, does everything, pretty, no mistakes. Technically perfect. And then the 3 stops from the outside, same thing. It's big stop. In this event, it's average. Second stop was better, still not enough. And the third stop was probably his best maneuver that wasn't his circles. I mean, this horse circles as good as anything there, except maybe Patriot, Miss Dreamy, and Trash Talkin' Spook. Still, nothing to be ashamed of. Great run. Bringing the old timer out and having that run is a way to make the Americans remember him, and his breeding career should be huge. In the other tie for 12th and 13th is Josh Tishman, Gunnarickashay, also with a 225.5. Big first stop. Josh handles him a little more than everybody else does. It's still really good. When he goes to his first turn, it's not the best start. Ricky usually gets off the neck rein really well, and he kind of just the smallest detail hung up just a little bit, and then after that turns his normal +1. But with that start, you might consider dropping it to a +0.5, especially where he drew late in this event, where you'd already seen horses just snap off and go. Second turn is not as smooth, much more compliant in terms of Ricky was much more willing to go, but he overturns. Now, Josh circles him, and this horse tries his heart out. Never takes a misstep in the big circles. It's beautiful, and I love watching that horse run because he tries so hard for Josh. He tried hard for Casey back in the day too, but I think there's something with that connection with Josh that's just incredible. Slow down and change are both smooth. Maybe not as special as something else, but it's so good. And he shows his heart even more on the second set because he just goes for it. Big first stop and rollback, probably a 1. Second stop and rollback's even bigger, definitely a 1. And the last stop's the weakest because he rebalances just a little bit when he enters the ground. This horse has nothing to prove, and we're splitting hairs here, but it just wasn't his night compared to what else happened. That's a run you'd be proud of anywhere. I mean, all 5 judges +1 his left circles. That horse was incredible, and it's a testament to the showman Josh has become, the connection he has with that horse's ability to try, because a lot of horses, when you geld them, they don't like to keep trying as hard as when they're studs, and this one does. It's an incredible thing. I loved the run. I just wish it had happened on a night when the competition wasn't quite so stiff. 11th place, Fernando Slagado, Gunnabeabrightstar, 227. Fernando is somebody I talked about as a dark horse, and this run might have proved why. And I'm going to say this too, with all the stuff going on in his personal life, the fact that he showed his horse this well is incredible demonstration of the strength of his character. don't get me wrong, don't get the placing wrong. He marked 227 at the biggest reining ever. Huge first stop. Slight hiccup in the middle where Brightstar had to readjust just a little bit. Smooth, pretty first spin, smooth, pretty second spins, but he underturned. So Brightstar leans just a little bit in the first big fast and has a mild trip in the slow transition. Probably knocks his plus down just a gauge from a 1 to a half or a 1.5 to a 1, depending on where you're at. Changes leads phenomenally. And just circles both ways so good. His left circles are even better than his right because he doesn't have the stumble. He doesn't have that steering issue. He's true across the middle. He's great. In fact, he plus 1 to 4 judges and 1.5 to the 5th. First stop's big and deep. He kind of wanted to get away at the end of the first rollback, or after the first rollback. But Fernando does a great job pulling him through, making it work. Second stop is massive stop. Slight hang in the rollback. And I mean, this is where we're splitting hairs. I'm nitpicking here. Still phenomenal. I wish my horses rolled back this good. But you're hitting little details compared to the people that placed above you. And the third stop is massive. Slightly adjust his hind feet. If you're going to split hairs, that's where you got to split them. The 227 is still plus territory in almost everything. Circled amazing, especially to the left. But those little adjustments, the first stop, the slight hang in the rollback to the right, this slight adjustment in the third stop, those little things added up. Fernando ends up 11th, still with a phenomenal run. 10th place, Dany Tremblay, Tinker with Dreams, marked a 227.5. Cilantro is one of my favorite horses in this deal. Hits a huge first stop, great backup. Typical Dany. He gets a little bit sloppy in his first turn, but he goes so fast that it kind of covers, but I'm pretty sure that's one of the things that separated him from some of the horses that turned just a smidge better than him. He also underturned. Better foot works the second way, overturns. So those little marks and this stuff, and especially if you're somebody who's a rookie or green rainer who's watching this review, this is where penalties kill you. You have a horse that does the same stuff as horses above them, and that 1 point is the difference in a lot of money at this deal. Penalties will stack up. Dany's horses circle. Fast, framed up, beautiful, big dynamic slowdown. We expect this of Dany now. It's almost become what his horses just do. I mean, it lopes like what a pleasure horse should look like. Not what they do, but what they should look like in the small slow. Just a nice, easy, paced, cadenced lope. It was beautiful. Everything was done on a drape. Big dynamic increase going the other way. Huge, huge maneuvers in the circles because it's Dany. And his left circles were awesome. 4 judges plus 1.5 to 1 plus 1 to him. Left circles were the maneuver of the night, apparently. He comes around, big first stop, little weak on the rollback. Huge second stop, better rollback, plus 1 all day long, if not a 1.5. Last stop was the weakest of his bunch. I think Cilantro might have been a little tired from the gas. It was still good. When I say the weakest, that means it was plus half territory. It was still good. And just once again, I'm going to throw this out there. Penalties kill your chances, folks. And Dany was actually the guy the day of when I got asked. I got asked by Too Tall and Cam Essick the day of, like, okay, make your final pick. Who is it? And I texted him and I said, it's Dany on Cilantro. Don't know why. He was just who I went with. I was a little wrong, but he's there. The horse is there, maneuver-wise. He's there. This is how close and tight this was. We're picking hairs, and when you have a point in penalties per judge, you know, all of a sudden now he's in that 231 territory, and it changes things. So I hope we see Dany and Cilantro back at this event. I hope we see Dany show the heck out of his horses all the time, just like he does, because he's phenomenal at it. And it was one of those runs that it was so much fun to watch. Ninth place, Francesco Martinotti, Smokin Trash, 228.5. If you guys listened to my preview podcast with Andrea, you guys know I have a ton of respect for Francesco and this horse. And I made a comment that I kind of regret saying, but at the same time, it's exactly what he did, is that this horse needed to keep his attention on the run-in so that he would hit that first stop. Francesco handles him just a touch to make sure that attention stays, and it is a monstrous stop and backup. Francesco has turned into a phenomenal showman who can adjust so softly and so smoothly. Having a great horse like this helps. Clean, dynamic, technically proficient spins, both ways. Second way almost makes it look too easy, like there's not enough challenge there. And that's the thing I'm wondering about, because this horse turns so good, but he makes it look easy. Whereas the horse that went just two before him in Jordan McBurney turned with all that mane flying and made it look dynamic. I think Francesco's horse just looks so smooth and easy that it's harder to plus him, even though it might be a technically better turn. Ran circles beautifully. Not quite the speed and dynamics to get up and down in the speed. Others went a little faster, at least it looked like it did. That being said, this is a littler horse, so maybe he can't cover as much ground as easily. And Francesco does a typical thing that you see a lot now of pitching the reins away in that slowdown, because he knows how good that thing looks slow. Technically correct to the nth degree. It lacked a little bit of the pizzazz. I know that's a weird word to use here, but it just didn't have that it factor that some of these other runs that placed a little higher will have. Still a phenomenal run. Like, I wish I could have a run this good, but that is where this horse separates from the top four-ish, 4 or 5-ish, 6 maybe, because that's where Jason was. Beautiful first stop, solid rollback. Second stop is not as great, still plus. And the third stop was probably the best run of this horse's career, or finished out the best run of this horse's career. I love this horse. He makes it look so easy. It's what I want in a horse. But when you get one that makes it look this easy and is just that smidge faster, you're going to give it to them, and that's what happened to separate him from that top section. Still a great horse, still a lot more showing ahead of him. Who knows, maybe Francesco brings him back next year if he gets qualified, or he's already qualified from the shootout, so correct that, strike that. Maybe he brings this one back, maybe he brings that other horse, but I think he should bring this one back, and as this one only gets older and stronger, I think this might be something that could break him through. And now for my other overachiever, Jordan McBurney, and No Man's Whizkey marked a 229 for 8th place. Run in, full bore, big stop. I have one nitpick here, and it's just this horse, and I know he does this, and it's not pulling on the bit, it's not as rude as it seems, but it does take away from the picture when he opens his mouth. He has a little hiccup in the backup, and so that stop to me is going to be a little less, a little harder to plus than the majority of the stops and backups you see this evening. He steps right, Jordan saves it, but it's still that. Now, when he gets to the turnaround, from this point on, phenomenal run. Turns huge, and with that big old mane No Man's Whizkey has, it makes it look even more dynamic. Don't get me wrong, he turned a rocket. He turned like a rocket. But you know, when those pretty buckskins get turning and that hair gets flying, when they have that much, it makes it just that much more eye appealing, especially to a crowd. And as predicted, Jordan was one of the crowd favorites running in. That place got loud, even on camera for that. Circles fast, technically correct. Beautiful slowdown, steady, small slow on that right side. And then change leads, steady again. Kicks into high gear right when she asks, runs perfect. I mean, at this point, I'm saying it's already the best run of Jordan's career, and she's had some great ones. Beautiful lead change, big first stop, slightest hiccup getting in. I think it pulled a front shoe right there, because I know it lost a shoe in either the first or the last stop on the wraparounds. I think it was the first one, because that's where it looked like it stepped on it. Monster monster second stop. Would have been even closer to being a 1.5. Slight little one step out at the end. Jordan saves it, makes a great rollback right from there, and big last stop, that 229. The best part about that run, because I'm not necessarily friends with Jordan, but I know her well enough to know that how much that meant to her, and seeing when they called that score, seeing the tears on her face on the camera was just great, because it was that run and you knew it, and it was awesome. And any other year she's the champion. This year she's 8th place. That's how tough it gets. So congratulations to Jordan, congratulations to the Strouds, congratulations to the horse, because he made the run of his life. Now my overachiever for the night. 7th place, Shawn McBurney and Trashy Little Lady marked a 229.5. I'm not saying they overachieved because they couldn't do it. I'm saying they overachieved because this is a 4-year-old going up against a pen of seasoned show horses and some of the best ever, and she's right in the middle of them. Now that we've done talking about the horse, Shawn proved his level of showmanship when he shows one. He has the guts to throw it out there on a full drape. I mean, we're talking pleasure horse drape. The reins were down to her knees when she ran in the pen, and she went a mile. But she's just a shade choppy on the front end. That prevents it being a 1.5, because the degree of difficulty is there for the speed and for the drape. Beautiful setup. If she'd been just a little bit looser, you're right there. Solid, smooth first turn, weaker but still strong second turn. This mare is it's a lot like Miss Dreamy in a different way, but a lot of full expression when she shows. Very pleasant, very fun to watch. Looks happy doing her work. That's what we like to see. Lopes off, hits that big fast on a rail. And this is where the expression comes out, is when she's circling. Hits a dynamic shutdown. Shawn never touched her face until he changed leads on her. She's better in the small slow the second direction because she's already slowed down. Way better big fast. This mare improved on the left side, just going monstrous. First stop around after the lead change around the side with the left rollback is completely challenged because Shawn's hand's still down, full drape. There it is. Come on, I dare you. They marked him. Second one, same thing. I mean, it's down there and it drug its backside. It was beautiful. Third stop, still challenged it. Maybe not as deep and in the ground as much, so some people might not like it as much, but I mean, when 5 judges plus 1, 3 of your maneuvers, you're doing something right. Shawn, a lot of people will say he got undermarked because he challenged it so much. I had him just a smidge higher, but once again, we're splitting hairs here. I had him a half point higher than they had him. I'm not going to argue with them on this. That was phenomenal. And I only watched from a screen. They watched from in person and sitting there live. Once again, this mare's got a career ahead of her. She's 4 years old. She's still got 2 more Derby years and maybe another 2 or 3 years of this event left if she stays this true. Because how's she going to come back after Shawn challenged her that much? It's an incredible thing. Great job all the way around. And they should be very excited for the future that this holds. 6th place was Jason Vanlandingham and Best Shine, who marked a 2:30. Yes, I just said 6th place was a 2:30. This horse has gotten so much better. I mean, he's always been cool, but I mean, he runs in and hits a huge stop. A little check step on the run in might prevent it from being bigger. First turn's huge. It's dynamic. Big step. He slips trying to stop and might have overturned. It was that close. Second turn is the same exact turn as the first one. Better finish and right on the button. Best Shine never moves his top line in the whole set of circles. I mean, when he rebalances, he lifts his shoulder, his neck never moves. It's beautiful. He might have elevated through the one lead change just a little bit, but both sets of circles are gorgeous sets. I mean, You're talking ones all over the place in this pattern. And then typical Jason best shine stops around the end, all three of them. There's nothing you can say about it that's not very good, maybe excellent, but I mean, minimum one stops. It was massive. It was great. Once again, and I'm going to say this, you're going to hear this a lot as we go forward. Jason pulled out his best run he's ever had on this horse. Probably not the best run he's ever had, but the best run on this horse. And it wasn't enough tonight. That was how good this horse show was. And that's nothing to be ashamed of, because this horse is proven to be a show horse. We all know Jason's proven to be a top-level showman. Sixth place sounds like, okay, well, they were kind of in the middle of the pack. Well, the middle of the pack's a 230. That wins at almost any event. My hat's off to these guys for showing this hard and doing that well. Fifth place, Arnold Honstetter and Miss Dreamy with a 231. This was my pick that a lot of people I thought were going to give me a hard time for, and they didn't as much as I thought they would. That being said, Arno proved everything about what I predicted. That mare went to the ground so hard for him in the first stop. She turns great, weakens a little bit at the end on the first one. It might have been an underspin. I don't think they called her for it, but it was close. The second turn was not as strong as the first turn. I mean, it's a plus, but we're nitpicking. We're splitting hairs here. Miss Dreamy might be one of the most, the horses that I've ever seen that circles with the most expression. She's 13 years old, been shown hard by multiple trainers, multiple non-pros. She still looks happy and pleasant all the time. It's one of the most pleasing pictures and the easiest, one of the easiest horses to plus on that maneuver. She stops huge in the first wraparound stop. I mean, the first stop around the end, she goes and drags her butt. She has to rebalance herself, doesn't take away from the maneuver. Second stop was better than the first one even, because it was just as big, but she stayed solid all the way through it and never had to pick. I will say this. She did not stop as long as some of the others, but she stopped so deep that it's such a pretty picture, and it's such a good thing. Arno took a risk on his last stop, and it pushed him up the leaderboard a little bit, and that was he shoved his hand forward and said, "I dare you not to mark me," giving that mare every chance to be naughty and step out and do something wrong, and that mare stayed true as true can be. That is such a good mare, such a proven mare. And I didn't even mention her best maneuver was her left set of circles. She's the only other horse, other than Trash Talking Spook, plus 1.5 to all 5 judges on one maneuver, and that was her left set of circles. An incredible run. It was just one of those things where when you're 5th place with a 231, I don't know if that's ever happened before. And like I said, Arno, Brenda, Rick Christensen, everybody who's involved with this horse should be so proud of this, so proud of the fact that, yeah, they pulled her out of retirement to make this run. She made the run that she needed to make. It was just that night where greatness was all around her, and she happened to be one of the greatest parts of it. Not quite the greatest part. An incredible mare, and I hope to see more in the future, even if it's the next generation. 4th place, Cade McCutcheon and Modern Gun, 231.5. Cade probably had the best first stop and backup of anybody in the pen. I mean, he maxed it out. It was monstrous, and he ran that thing full bore, stopped huge. Mickey did not miss a beat. Bam. First turn was dynamic, pretty, and smooth. Not quite that elite group of the Mavericks, the Trash Talking Spooks, and the Patriots of the world. At the second turn's the same thing. He's a one both ways. He might have a little bit of a funky finish there, and the horse caught himself. Cade might have caught him with his spurs to pick him up and make sure he didn't crumble his back end, like buckle down. And Cade went for it all and got a lot of it. I mean, he went for it. Mickey hung with him the whole time in both set of circles. It's hard when you're comparing the horse that might be the best circler in the world or in the history of NRHA, in one like Patriot or one like Trash Talking Spook. to Mickey, who is a great horse in his era. He just happens to be a great horse in the era of other great, all-time great horses. Huge, clean, pretty stops and rollbacks. Probably the right one I would have 1.5. The stop of the right rollback, so the second one. That being said, they didn't want to have it across the board. Cade probably did the best job showing what he had and maximizing. And I'm saying this about a horse that is one of my favorites of all time. I loved him. I've loved him his whole career. He might just not have had enough horse to compete with those top 3. His best maneuver in the whole thing was his left circles. That being said, I think he stopped, that first big stop was huge, and I think his both sets of circles were amazing. Cade should be proud. The owners of this horse should be proud. He's one of the greatest. He just happened to be in the pen with probably 2 or 3 of the greatest of all time. And a 4th place finish in this pen is nothing to sneeze at. It's a great run, and that's where we should let it be, is that it was a great run. 3rd place, Casey Deary in Americasnexttopgun, 233.5. Might be the most dynamic run that Casey and Maverick ever made. Probably not the smoothest, because that would probably be the NRBC Championship in 2020. First stop was huge, but he was a little stiff in the front end. Turns monstrous. 1.5 both ways. Probably should have been a 1.5 on both, if you're going to be completely honest. He was a little safe on the finish in both, but that horse turns so good. He circles big and smooth and happy like Maverick always does. I almost wonder if he makes it look too easy. That thing moved and booked around there, but it didn't look like it was working hard as the 2 horses that finish ahead of it. His first stop with the left rollback looks more like Maverick. He's loose in the front end, stops big, snaps through a rollback. His second stop might be the best stop that horse has ever done. He 1.5 that thing easy. I'm pretty sure he 1.5 to every single judge. That's the exceptional, great quality we expect from that horse. His last stop was the weakest of his wraparound stops, but better than the first one. Still probably a +1. And that 233.5 was well earned. I personally had him just a smidge lower, but when we're talking the difference between a 77 and a 77.5, you're splitting hairs. It was an incredible run, and any other event wins the championship. Here, it was 3rd best. It placed 3rd best. And that's nothing to be ashamed of in this group. I mean, Casey and Maverick have been a great team, and they proved it once again with a stellar, stellar run that makes only more people want to breed to that horse. Your reserve champion, Trash Talkin' Spook, Andrea Fappani, marked at 234. The first stop and the last stop, you can argue, Andrea shows the horseman he is by saving an out of balance stop on the first one. It's still big. It's not as smooth as other horses on their big ones. He's a monster turner both ways. Right was big. The left was even better. I mean, it's incredible. Should be a 1.5 to everybody. Not all of them did, but that's the epitome of that style of horse, doing a 1.5. The first set of circles were really, really good. Went big, slowed down nice, beautiful lead change. Second set, he's even more on a rail. He loves the small slows on a full drape. He hits that big fast, and boom, it's awesome. His first 2 stops around the sides are big and dynamic, and honestly, the last stop probably cost him the title, either the last one or the first one, because he did need to rebalance in the middle of it, and it took what could have been a 1 back down to a half. Easily his best maneuvers are his left circles, but you could make an argument for his left turns too. Lefty proved again in one run, there aren't many horses better. Unfortunately for this team, they just ran up against one of the greatest runs of all time, and they were right there. They were right there all the way to the end, and just that on maneuver for maneuver, might have hung with Patriot, but those two little ticky-tacky mistakes are what keep that horse and Patriot separate from each other. Patriot was smooth all the way through. Lefty was dynamic all the way through. And smooth will beat dynamic if you also have dynamics. All right, the winner, Nathan Piper, Patriot, scored 235. My opinion, the best run I have ever seen. The score did not set the record. It came up a 1.5 short. I went back and watched Custom Legends 236.5. Spooks Got a Whiz is 236. Both incredible runs and ahead of their times. I've never seen a run that good with that high a degree of difficulty, with no mistake. You can't nitpick that run and find something that it didn't do well. There's one stop that's a +0.5 instead of a 1. Okay, that's something we all wish we could do. He was 1s and 1.5s all over the place. His third stop, so that would be his stop on the left lead, coming down the close side of the arena, best I've ever seen Patriot stop. His run in, stop, and backup was right up there too as one of the better stops that horse has ever done. He turned a 1.5 both ways, and like the way that horse and Trash Dog and Spook turned, it's the argument for a +2 being added to this because we're getting to that level. There's so few horses that can do it. I don't think we need to. It's incredible. Patriot, that's one of the greatest runs of all time. No matter what ever happens in his career, if they show him again, it's incredible. And not taken away from anybody else on what they did or didn't do that night. It's just when you have a horse that's that talented and on that level, it's hard to beat it. Nathan should be incredibly proud of the preparation, the training, the run he made, everything about that Nathan should be proud about. The Reeds should be proud of owning this horse. The farrier that works with Nathan should be proud of how good of a job he did shoeing it. The vets who helped get him there and get him ready and took care of him. The assistants to Nathan who worked for him the whole time he's had this horse. Everybody should be proud of the job they did in any small part or big part with this horse. And the fans should be proud of the fact they got to watch one of the greatest horsemen, one of the greatest runs in NRHA history. It was incredible, and I would be hard-pressed to find a run better than this in the modern era.